Welcome back, venturers. It's time for another discussion about VNs. I am Emar, and together with Tauros, we will talk today about inspirations in VN. Inspirations in VNs, from mythologies being animified, to authors getting divine inspiration to write the strongest harem power fantasy possible. It is quite the deep thing. Tauros, what inspired you to propose such topic?
Inspirations. Oh boy, you see it all the time in all sorts of creative works. Visual novels are no exceptions because at the end of the day, especially on the indie scene, many creators are visual novel fans just like us. And they have their favorites, they have their footsteps they want to follow, so I thought this would be pretty interesting to take a look at some titles that took inspiration from other titles or anime or light novels or something else. Some titles are more obvious about it than others, and some may have missed the mark or nailed the vibes perfectly. But let's take a look at some of them, huh?
Let's go.
We're gonna start off with a good one. One of my favorites, Soul Set. 5 strangers are trapped in a mansion. They all have amnesia, and they don't seem to know each other. But as they explore the mansion, they discover clues, they dig for the deeper mysteries, and they find out more truths about their predicaments and of themselves, as there are all sorts of hidden dangers lurking around every corner. The Zero Escape series inspired so many indie visual novel creators. 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors was huge for myself because it got me into the visual novel, scene to begin with all those years ago. Same with Virtue's Last Reward. And there are all sorts of indie devs out there who cite the Zero Escape series as their inspirations for making their indie projects. And one of my favorites that ever came out of it was Soul Set. And it's funny because it's such a different environment than what you typically expect. You have the same core premise where you have these strangers who are trapped in life or death situations, and there's all sorts of spiraling mysteries that just dig deeper and deeper until you start making some startling revelations about the characters and about their predicament. But instead of the typical Zero Escape scenario, where it's modern day, with maybe a little bit of pseudoscience involved, this very much takes place in a magical fantasy setting, full of dark arts, demons, soul bindings, the little bit nastier kind of magic, the magic with a bit of edge and danger and contracts to it. And I think that kind of atmosphere really sells the environment so much more. There is a lot of danger involved, and even though there are plenty of periods of downtime where the characters get to know each other and make small talk and joke around, and we get to explore the relationships between them and their backstories as much as they can remember, there's still plenty of danger involved. And the whole magical aspect of it actually makes things more interesting because you, the reader, you have no clue what's going to be coming up next, whether it's some sort of talking book or some secret family histories, or whatever strange magical item pops out next. There's a lot of mystery that transcends the normal Zero Escape modern day setting. Zero Escape had some pseudo-scientific aspects to it, where you're not really sure how much of it to believe and how much of it is just a straight-laced, normal modern day storytelling. But I think when you really opened up some of the intrigue with a title like Soul Set by adding the magic, it allows for a lot more possibilities. I like that. It was a great inspiration in the sense that it kept, the best parts of Zero Escape, the choices, the dangers to all of them, the mysteries, but it also added its own flair to it. It wasn't a one-to-one copy of 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. It added plenty of fresh new characters and a different outlook and a very different setting. I think this is one of those... a very good inspirational title.
I got to ask one thing, hearing all of that. One of the best qualities of mystery story I would say, is getting enough clues for the reader to start piecing together what really happened. Do you feel like having that kind of dark magic, which throws a spanner in logical reasoning, helps to be surprised? Does it still follow through logically? And can you, decipher what is going on instead of being annoyed at Aspus in this title?
I wouldn't say Soulset has any Aspholes. I do think it's interesting to have these dark magics involved where you're where you're in the dark for a lot of the exact specifics, but I do think that it generally lays things out at the beginning and sets the premises early on to the point where you don't feel like you're getting rug pulled by any, BS answers or plot twists later down the line. It's the sort of, well, they laid out the rules and establishments, and then when there are twists, it's like, oh, okay, you could have seen it coming, or it makes sense within the rules they established. I don't...
If I understand correctly, it keeps it fresh, even though it gets inspired from the Zero Escape, right? But it still keeps it fresh with the angle of dark magic here.
Yes. I don't think it's perfect. There are a few times where, the whole mystery and solving it out ahead of yourself clearly isn't the focus. The focus is more on the drama and the character growth and whatnot. Just like with Zero Escape, it had some great mysteries and some big twists, but overall, I do think the emphasis is more on the atmosphere, the pacing, and the characters.
And if I understand correctly, Zero Escape titles were always somewhat contained within a location. And similarly, this Soulset is also, you are in an abandoned mansion of some sort, right?
Yes, exactly. There is a magical force field keeping them trapped in this mansion. And I guess there are plenty of other problems that arise, but at the core, yes, they need to figure out how to turn this force field off so they can get out and go about their lives.
Okay, so the objective is to escape it so that it's not quite literally zero escaped, right?
Or else they may have to live their life with zero escape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
so
I see.
Yeah, like I mentioned, there were plenty of indie developers who found inspiration from Zero Escape and wanted to make their own setup of killing games, of kidnapped individuals, and not knowing who you can trust and who's on your side. I'm always happy to see a whole bunch of indie titles trying their best. I love those kinds of premises too, so that helps. It's a win-win for me.
Exactly. It's the best title to get inspired, so Towers is kept busy reading all of those Zero Escape likes. That's a new genre.
It's not a new genre. I wish it was, but alas. But yeah, I very much enjoyed Soulset. And even though it doesn't necessarily look like it has that Zero Escape influence at first glance, the more you read and the more you recognize the big picture brushstrokes. That was pretty cool.
Okay. Well, to contrast with that inspiration, I took something more with a bigger tonal clash, because I brought together for the inspiration Necopara. More specifically, what inspired Necopara. So, first recap: Necopara is an innocent title in which Cashel, the protagonist, leaves family house to start his own business baking sweets. But it would be too boring if it is all about patissier journey. So here comes Catgirls, and so Necopara was born. For today's topic, most importantly, the title's author, Sayori, expressed multiple times that the two characters which are the focus of the very first volume, chocolate and vanilla, were inspired by a similar duo of characters from none other than Ren's series, specifically Kichiko Rans. So you have a pair of angelic demons, La Seisvel and La Hausel, the ice demonic angel and the fire demonic angel, sisters exhibiting polar opposite personality both to each other as well as to elements they represent. You have the cool and collected stoic fire demon in contrast to the abrasive, erratic, childish ice demon. And that duality, that polar opposite element, inspired the creator of Necopara to create two opposing cat girls. Here, Chocola and Vanilla, one of which, Chocola, being very cheerful, happy-go-lucky, ditzy, airhead, whereas you have, on contrast, Vanilla, which is more stoic, kuderish, sarcastic cat girl. It's super weird to hear that for such an innocent title to be inspired by Rans, but it's so funny origin to think about.
I don't think it's entirely innocent.
Listen, I tried to put some representative pictures, especially there is a contribution by Sayori, which is an absolutely hilarious feedback loop, who drew the La Seisvel and La Haswell artwork in the last Rans game, the Rans X, as a guest artist. So think about how cool that is. So she gets inspired by two characters, create her own series, and then has a contribution of external fan art inside the game that series inspired her own title. And yes, I wanted to include that title, but it's way too spicy for YouTube, okay?
Okay.
Not so innocent.
Thank you,
true.
I suppose. But yeah, so you had these, I mean, these are two side characters in the Rants game, right?
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
It's very hard to define the line between side and main character in such a long and recurring title.
Oh boy. Okay, well, you had...
To answer that question this way.
Yes.
In the current canon, right? Because to explain, Rans was a title developed by Alisoft up until Kichiko Rans, when they had monetary troubles, and they poured all in. When all in, it sold legendary well, and they re-established the game, once again, the series from zero. For now, until now, it's translated up until the volume 9, those two characters haven't yet appeared. So from the standpoint of whether or not they main and side, it's hard for me to defend main characters. Now, whether or not they will be important in the last title will be seen after that releases in English.
Okay. So they are... So thanks to the good old language barriers and release statuses, they are existing in a quantum state of being important, but not yet released at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I know all about it. Yep.
In the original title, Kichiko Rans, that serves as a basis for the new canon, they were quite important. They were somewhat, you could say, rival characters to each other, and one of them kept also pursuing the protagonist forces. So they were kind of torn in your ass. Constantly, you had to be on guard against one of them.
Mm-hmm. But
From
the point...
that standpoint, they were quite important.
Yes. But the point being is that they were a pair of characters in Rants, and the Necopara designer saw them and decided, I want to style my two
Yes.
main heroines after them.
Exactly.
And that is how we got Chocola and Vanilla from Necopara 1, right?
Yep.
That's so cool. Character designs,
so
are
cool.
very much something that can take inspiration as well. Not necessarily the entire plot of a visual novel, but hearing that inspiration come from Rants, the pipeline from Rants to Necopara is one heck of a transition.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
That's when the artist, you gotta
it's-
start commissioning like outfit swaps or something.
Exactly, yes. Oh, yeah. It was so funny to see Sayori, the Necopara's author, create a fan art for the Rans X that looks in a hairstyle, but meaning the Necopara's art style, but depicting characters from Rans. So that looks so bizarre to see, and it's such a wholesome feedback loop of being inspired by work, but then contributing back to that work.
Especially as distinct
Super
as
cool.
Rance, with it being super arrow, and then Necopara being very cutesy art style. Yeah.
Yep.
The clash.
Yeah, then there has to be something about the clash, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Also, that's cool.
So,
Now,
what kind of inspiration you brought forth?
okay. This, I have a habit. Every so often, when I'm on Steam and I don't really have anything lined up in particular, I'll just look at like the new released visual novels, and I'll see something and I'll know nothing about it. But just, let's go out on a limb. Let's check this out. It just released the other day. Let's find out what this is. I'm feeling brave. I'm feeling bold. And unfortunately, this usually doesn't work out for me. One such title I read years ago was How to Date a Magical Girl. The main character, despite having little magical talent, enrolls in a magical academy. And he has 1 year to meet his classmates, attend classes, learn about the systems, balance your studies, manage your free time, and try to build yourself up as a decent enough magical student and live a happy high school life as well. It is a stat sim, but it does often, it's mostly a visual novel as well, but you do get to decide how to handle your free time, who to get close to, and all of that when you have the available heroines, romanceable heroine routes. And this took inspiration from like Madoka Magica, where you have the cutesy magical girl aspects about friendship and fighting evil monsters and the baddie of the week sort of format, but with also the dark undercurrents and the deaths and the evilness seeping through. And there were probably plenty of other inspirations that took advantage of the whole Madoka Magica cutesy exterior with the serious dark undertones. And so here's a visual novel that followed in that footsteps, but unfortunately, it was not very good. It felt like it was using a lot of the dark aspects as shock value. It never really flowed together into any sort of major themes. And despite how whack things were going, the main character still living his normal slice of life, happy romantic stuff with the heroines, felt jarring the whole way through. Especially when the other production aspects of the title weren't all that great either.
Oh.
A lot of, so yeah, in a word, you could say a lot of it was amateur. Which I don't, I respect indie VN developers for putting themselves out there, for combining all of the many different aspects it takes to create a title. And when it is when it is I guess you could say subpar and amateur in several ways, like I still do respect the fact that they tried. That's about where the praise ends though, and there were many silly aspects about this title, How to Date a Magical Girl. Sometimes, you just go out on a limb and you check out something new and you want to experience something. And, well, it's a swing and a miss. What can you say?
Okay, I wonder if some of those difficulties you are describing came as a consequence of a story that tries to push protagonist as a second fiddle. Because from what I understand, the grave danger and the combativeness of the magic comes from those heroines who fight as magical girls, while the protagonist is enjoying his peaceful high school life as a normal high school boy. So in a way, he's playing the secondary role to what is happening.
I suppose. That's not inherently bad. It's not inherently bad for a main character to be playing second fiddle to other characters, especially if those other characters have very strong, character growth and great writing to really explore who they are. I don't think you have to be that character themselves as the main character to appreciate other people's growth. But that's not really what happened here anyways.
Okay.
There isn't much to say about it, about the parts that it tried playing straight, with the dark stuff and the slice of life stuff, and the twists that did come up were definitely novel, and it very quickly ran out of steam and didn't really go anywhere and wasn't executed particularly well. To the point where, and like you mentioned, it's dark and there's deaths and stuff, and eventually it was very much just losing its way. It lost the sauce.
So it's not necessarily the trying to play the second fiddle, but maybe it was edgy for its edgy sake and nothing more?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely being edgy. And I mean, they did try to make it into something. They were trying to tell a story. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, they just really lost the sauce. I don't want to spoil anything for any of those who sound intrigued and really want to check this out. So I'll let you enjoy it on your own terms. But unfortunately, it didn't do it for me.
Yeah. Apparently, it had too little escaping and murder mystery going on for Towers to appreciate.
I watched Madoka Magica. I'm happy with anything taking inspiration with that. The whole start off light and sweet and then turn into, dark, serious character drama stuff. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. In fact, that's great. Just unfortunately, this took inspiration from it and tried to follow in its footsteps and did not measure up. Oh well.
Dame.
But that was very cool still seeing the inspiration behind it anyways.
That's true. That's true. Definitely an interesting combination. I have a next inspiration that is probably less crazy, although you'll reserve the judgment, because I brought forth Venus Blood Frontier. I've talked about this title before, and it's a title that takes heavy inspiration from Norse mythology. It quite literally has Norse gods turned into anime girls and depicts end times, the Ragnarok. Yeah. The main cast consists of the protagonist Loki, the elder god and leader Odin. You have Thor, Tyrka, I guess based on the god Tyr, Ygritte, and the closest I could find is Ygr from Norse mythology. Freya, Fenna, Fenrir, Garm, Hel, Jorm, I guess based on Jormungandr. You have the demon sword, Ymir. All crazy names that I just butchered right now. You're welcome, all our Swedish listeners. It's definitely one of those titles that kept me appreciate that I have two monitors on which one was constantly open the Wikipedia and other sites citing Norse mythology for me to understand what's the characters' inspirations and where they come from. And it was so funny listening to those characters banter, and sometimes in between dialogue I can spot some references, or at least I suppose it's a reference to how mythology is, how Jormungandr is connected to Loki, but in the game she really dislikes being linked to Loki. Like, okay, I see where this is going, okay. Because she's very much a tsundere, okay?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, mythology is always, a great base for a lot of visual novels, mobile games, who need to fill out a cast, and you automatically have all of these characters with their rich backstories and personality types and their feats and relationships. Plus, it's public domain too. Oh yeah.
Exactly. All you need to do is hit them with some animizing beam and turn them into waifus, right? Poof, you have the game.
Exactly. But like you mentioned, you have VNture, who is that inspiration for a character, and you automatically have that bond of being Loki's servant. But then, where does Venus Blood go with it? Does it play it straight? Does it tease it like, oh, well, actually, she hates being Loki's servant? Do you go with a surprise twist or the fake out? You have options. You've got this base, this inspiration to work with, right?
Yep, exactly. So I really appreciated the fact that I could open my Google and kept Googling all the characters, and I had ample opportunity to learn about Norse mythology and liberal approach to that story in the Japanese VN.
Right. Because there's like the real life mythology, and then you gotta be on your guard anytime you read anything in the visual novel about their mythology, because you're like, okay, is this real life or is this like the weebified version?
True, exactly.
Can't take it.
Some of those characters, yes, and some of those characters were so popular by the Venus Blood fanbase, they even got their own nicknames, like how rarely anybody calls Odin, but rather it's Oden. You know,
Oden?
as in the Japanese food, Oden is.
Oh boy, okay.
So they, yeah, that kind of deal. Aye.
That's cool. It's especially funny when you have
cool.
like, usually the Norse gods are a popular example, or the Egyptian gods, and seeing how all sorts of different visual novels and anime series and games all take their own inspirations.
Yes.
Like, It's really funny to see a character like Florence Nightingale and all the different works and seeing all their different appearances and roles and stories and actions and stuff.
Do I need to even mention Oda Nobunaga? How many interpretations in VNs and anime does that person has?
Oh my goodness, yep. All of those historical inspiration stuff. That's always so fun.
Yeah.
It's like unwrapping a present again and again and again. And it's the same thing, but it's different every time.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Speaking of which, in a way, there's one more title that definitely took inspiration from another, and that is a title called Princess Waltz. So we start with a normal high school guy who gets caught up in a fantasy world where 7 princesses are fighting it out in a battle royale combat to become the new queen for winning. Our main character here is partnered with Iris, a blonde, serious swordswoman who will lead them to victory against all fighters. And I don't think anyone needs to explicitly be told what this is taking inspiration from. But to anyone out there who doesn't see it yet, this is definitely Fate's Day Night.
No way.
This is where the inspiration is a little heavy-handed. But you know what? It works. You've got an action title where it's a battle royale, where you have these super fantastical warriors duking it out with all sorts of different weapons and fighting styles. A bunch of different characters, a bunch of different hype moments in the fights. You know what? Sometimes that's all you need. So what if it's very similar to Fate's Day Night, and it's really following Fate's Day Night's story pretty closely. But you know what? That's fine. We still get all sorts of great moments. All sorts of great scenes and great CGs and great moments. I loved it.
Yeah, for a moment there, hearing your inspirations from the previous titles you mentioned, I forgot that there's one other, in addition to murder mystery, trying to escape from secluded location. There's one other that when it takes inspiration from it, Taurus like, yes, I'm all in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here we go. Oh yeah, serve up those
It's
battle
Battle
royales. I want to see multiple people trying to fight their way to the one prize and all the uneasy alliances and enemies that get formed. Oh yeah, serve it up. Let's go.
Exactly.
I want to see the
That'll be fun.
serious, blonde, blue-eyed swordswoman slowly get closer to the main character instead of being so aloof and distant. Yeah.
And here I was holding out hope that there will be one episode that will not mention fate. But I guess I was mistaken.
Oh, come on. We get plenty without fate. How dare you? You want to go like that? How many times are you going to bring up rants? Yeah, that's right. You tied it in a Necopara.
We're not focusing on me, we're focusing on you, okay?
I'm not going to stand for this. You know what? If you're going to be like that, I'm just going to take my fate and my Princess Waltz out of this episode myself. Goodbye. We don't need you.
Oh my god. And I think you won with your wish, because that's a very good place to end it all.
How dare you? Thank you to everyone else who enjoyed this episode, I suppose. And all the different ways visual novels took inspirations from other examples.
Yeah. I also want to thank all our listeners. And what inspired you to read VNs? Venture out.
Venture out.